Hi everyone, welcome to the SLOconf monthly meetup. I'm very excited to be joined by an amazing speaker today. Today with us is Max Nee. Max works for New York Times, and today Max will be speaking about how you can engage and include your customers along your SLO journey. And before I go ahead and give Max the stage, I wanted to remind everyone to sign up for SLOconf. SLOconf is a global virtual event. This year, we're bringing local events around the world. It's one of my favorite things about SLOconf that it's an attend while you work format. So you can attend from your phone, you can attend from your computer, you can be anywhere in the world and attend and enjoy the content. It's educational, it consists of educational 10-minute snackable videos and deeper dives. We have strict rules of no sales pitch. And we have a global Slack space with which you can join and chat with the speakers and with the organizers and with each other, with the community. So please use this QR code to sign up for SLOconf or check it out at SLOconf.com, and we all hope to see you there.
Everybody, my name is Max. I'm a staff software engineer at the New York Times. This talk might go a little funky today. My wife and I had our first kid back in August. I was planning to write the talk the last week, and it was very hard. It was my last week of parental leave, and I'm back at work starting, well, last Monday. So the title of the talk is called Engaging with Your Customers and Your SLO Journey. So let's, who am I? I'm a staff software engineer at the New York Times. You can follow me on Twitter at Max Nee. This is my dog, Bonnie. She's a greyhound. She's a rescue. I do have to add a picture of my daughter, but I'll do that later. I'll have to ask her permission first. So let's talk about running a system at scale. So when you build something, you achieve scale, and when you're doing that, you want to you're as an owner operator of a system. We know how it works. We understand it, the architecture, the ins and outs, right? We know how it should behave because we're the ones who built it. So when you build this system and you deploy it and you scale it up, right? There are things that you want to measure, right? Look at your CPU usage, your latency, memory usage, your throughput. These are all sort of basic signals that you want to look at when you're deploying a system and building a system. These are things that we look at and understand as owners and operators of a system. But there are times that, let's come from the other side of the coin. So we derive SLIs from metrics. We create those SLOs from SLIs. These are good to have as an operator. And, this is like a normal workflow of creating SLOs. If you're not familiar with SLOs, maybe in the Q&A, we can discuss a little bit more about these. So what happens when if your SLOs are green and your customers are experiencing issues? That's a problem that you generally don't want to have. So that means that you may have, you're looking at the wrong things and alerting on the incorrect things. It's not a bad problem to have. It's a good problem because, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And you think about this and you're like, SLOs were created to prevent this, right? In my previous experience, I've run a company-wide CI/CD system. Our customers are other software engineers at the company, and we had a Slack channel that was for support. We were hoping that Slack channel would mostly be used for hey, getting people onto the platform and learning how they're using it. But it was more like, hey, is the system down? I'm having an issue, right? And we'd look at our dashboards and everything would be okay, and we wouldn't see any problems. So it's like, uh, what's going on here? So how can we ensure that we're how can we ensure that our customers are happy, and our dashboards also indicate the same thing? So the first thing you want to do is talk to your customers. That's pretty important, right? You've built your system, you're building something that they're going to use. You want to talk to them to ensure that you're on the same page in terms of what your system is capable of doing. So you want to understand their expectations, what will help them, what they don't care about, and what is working for them. So, to put this in a pretty clear-cut example, if you're building an e-commerce application, and the critical part is, you want to make sure that your system is able to check out and you receive money. So like you want to make sure that your buy flow works properly. But for your customers, maybe they want to look at the pictures of the products they're going to buy, and if those pictures load slowly, that's not a great experience for them. Even though your system may be performing optimally according to you, you could be leaving money on the table. So it's best to engage, to learn about that, to learn about like what's preventing them from buying stuff from you. And like maybe they don't care. Now this is again an example, but maybe they don't care that checking out takes a long time because they've already submitted their information and they hit submit. And like what is working for them. So like, hey, maybe navigating from one product to another doesn't take a really long time. So maybe you don't need to, maybe you can set an SLI or an SLO for page or item navigation. So you want to create SLIs and SLOs based on their feedback, because that will generate trust between your customers and your service, because that way you're more attuned to their pain points, not coming from like, I'm an operator of the system, I know how it works. And the SLIs and SLOs have more meaning and they're more actionable when they are in violation. So if you do see that loading product images is violated, is that SLO is in violation, you're able to remedy that quicker, as opposed to like not necessarily having an SLO or an SLI around that, and your customers could say, hey, we're having a problem. So what happens next after you've set these sort of recalibrated SLIs and SLOs? If you're in violation of your SLOs, you'll have a greater understanding of what your users are experiencing, and you'll be able to look at the right things to remedy or fix. That if your users come to you and say this isn't working, you have to start from square one. Whereas if you have an SLO that's in violation, common sense you'd probably have a run book of what to do when that SLO is in violation, which is a better way to fast track resolving that, and making sure that you're no longer in violation and your customers are back to using your service properly. So by focusing on their needs, the respect and relationship between you and your customers are improved. So, it should never be an us versus them mentality, right? We work hard as software engineers to build services and products. There's a lot of effort behind product management to help determine what to build. But when we want to deploy and maintain that service or that product, we don't want that relationship to be frayed or be negatively impacted because we're not, addressing their needs once the service is built and deployed. But there are some things that you can do if you have a good relationship with your customers. Like you can do cool stuff, right? You can do A/B testing. You can start getting into advanced deployments and canary deployments, and your customers won't ask if there's a problem, right? Because if you're letting them know that you're going to do something, they have they have trust in you to do the right thing, and it'll be a good, happy feedback loop, right? They say, oh, this isn't working for us, or hey, this is great, do more of this. And this also opens up the door for, you can always, as always, you should revisit your SLOs with them. Because you've taken care of some of their core needs, sometimes you can then either fine tune your SLOs, but you want to keep that channel of communication open to ensure that things are working well, and things that you can improve. Right, the core functionality is working great, where SLOs are alerting us properly. Let's move to more advanced things that our service provides for them. And we can create new SLOs to ensure that those more advanced and maybe harder to quantify parts of your application are properly looked at. So in conclusion, like don't forget to revisit your SLOs, ensure their expectations are met, and you then have open communication with your customers as you implement SLOs to make sure that your service is operating properly for them, and not necessarily from the view of the operator or owner of that product or service. So that's my talk. Any questions?
Question, Max, and I know you got other people from your team here too. So I'm curious, have you really seen, or how would you kind of quantify the impact that SLOs has had on your team, like in terms of time savings, or money savings, or just frustration savings, or whatever? Like, how would you, if you were to put a number on it, or some numbers on it, how would you measure it?
I think it would be mostly frustration savings. The team that I'm currently on, we provide CI/CD platforms for software engineers at the times. So if there's a critical bug fix, or elections are a big thing, so we have to be prepared for when there are elections happening. We have to scale up to make sure that we meet any sort of last minute bug fixes that need to get out. So it mostly saves frustration from our users' standpoint with our SLOs.
Do you use any quantification, like NPS scores, satisfaction scores? Is there anything that you can point to that you can count and measure? Because I don't know about other people, but this is one question I get asked a lot, is that it's are SLOs just this warm, fuzzy thing, or in terms of the impact, or is it something that we can really say, you know what, without it, we had X and now we have X times 7? You know what I mean?
So at my previous company, they did bi-monthly eNPS, where the platform I was running, people would complain a lot about. So here at the Times, we don't, as far as I'm aware of, we don't do that, but I'm sure, we can talk to our product person, and as we mature, because it's a relatively new area that we're getting into. But that's something that we could definitely talk about and look into to make sure that hey, the platform's really slow. What's going on? And are users not saying anything because they don't want to upset anybody, or, like we want to make sure that everybody's satisfied. So working on some sort of, MPS or some sort of satisfaction survey could probably go a long way.
Well, thanks, Max.
Thank you. Any more questions for Max? Okay, well, if you think of any other question, you can always Slack Max on the SLOconf channel. Speaking of, so if you use the QR codes in this screen, I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. And if you use those QR codes, it will take you to, the first one takes you to the SLOconf channel, to the Slack one. So you can, I'm assuming most of you are there, but if not, I highly suggest to get there. We share important updates about SLOconf and the SLOconf monthlies. You can talk to your speakers, like Max is there if you have any questions. And then I highly suggest you to check out SLODLC. If Kid wants to talk more about it, I will let him do that. If not, you just use the I'll
just say SLODLC, if you haven't heard about it, it's the SLO development lifecycle. It's an open source project we started last year, and it's full of examples and templates for how to drive and adopt SLOs across your organization. It is system agnostic, meaning you can use it for whatever SLO platform or tooling that you've got in place. It's all just documents and markdown files and things like that. So we're always looking for more help, and there's a bunch of people who have started using it to drive SLO adoption in their orgs, and check it out.
I can give a really good plug for it. We use it in my org, and we use it as our receipt book. So as I prod and poke the different departments and different development groups with the stick and have them go out and build SLOs, and we help them build SLOs. I have a dedicated TPM that works with product owners and TPMs from the destination team that kind of guide them to use SLODLC. And I tell them, hey, this is your receipt book. And so fill these out, work through these sheets. It will help you build better SLOs. But then when invariably somebody comes back and says, why is this SLO built this way? Who signed off on this? Like, who decided that this is the user journey that we wanted to track? You don't have to kind of go through the scrambled egg of your brain of trying to figure that out. You can just hand in your receipt book and say, hey, here's the log book, here's the receipt book, here's how we made our decisions, right? Focusing on outcomes generally doesn't work. But focusing on the decision-making and documenting that decision-making through SLODLC has worked wonders for us, because it gives every team that receipt book to be able to say, this is why we did it. These are decisions we made. These are the things that we took into account in making these decisions. And it helps explain it to a VP or an executive or something. And they go, oh, okay, I understand why you made this decision. And it's the end of the story, right? And so it allows my business users to run the business and leave the engineering decisions to the engineers that can actually make them. And it kind of keeps them out of my way. So yeah, SLODLC it's a little daunting if you're doing it for thousands of SLOs. But overall, it's a huge benefit, and it's a benefit to the teams that are building the SLOs.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's why I was hoping one of you will take over and talk about this. And so check out all of these. I will leave this on the screen for a bit so you have time to take up your phones and check out the websites. All you have to do is scan the code. And then last but not least, my favorite conference of the year, SLOconf. Make sure to sign up for that. It's free to sign up. We're going to have a bunch of amazing speakers. Max has been a speaker at SLOconf last year, just to give you a perception of how great the speakers are there. Zach has spoken, Kit has done that too. So a bunch of SLOconf speakers on this call today. But register and stay tuned, because we are sharing exciting news and info if you want to join any of the SLOconf locals, which will be the in-person format. But otherwise, if you can't, everything will be online too. And with that, I wanted to thank everyone for joining today.